Vedas versus Modern Atomic Theory, Part 3, The Observer Problem. The shadow in the doorway did not move. Daniel stood slowly, his chair scraping against the concrete floor. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. Just the low hum of the building's ventilation system and the distant rumble of thunder fading into the night. He stepped closer. The shadow shifted slightly. Then a voice spoke, calm, measured, almost curious. "You asked to see the first atom." Daniel froze. The voice was not threatening. It wasn't loud. It sounded almost academic. A man stepped into the doorway. Late 60s, gray hair, thin frame, wearing a long coat that looked older than it should have been. Daniel didn't recognize him. "Who are you?" Daniel asked. The man ignored the question. Instead, he looked at the dark computer screen. "You're trying to compare the Vedas with atomic theory," he said. "That's dangerous." "Dangerous?" replied Daniel. "It's just research." The man gave a faint smile. "No, it's not." He walked into the room and examined the shelves as if he owned them. Most people either romanticize ancient wisdom or dismiss it completely. Both are mistakes. Daniel's heart was still racing, but curiosity pushed past fear. "So which is it?" he asked. "Were the ancient sages describing atoms, or is it all symbolic?" The man turned to face him. "Before we answer that, you must understand something about modern physics." He reached over and tapped the computer power button. To Daniel's shock, the screen came back to life. But this time, there were no strange messages. Instead, a familiar equation appeared. E equals mc squared. Energy and matter are interchangeable. Mass is condensed energy. Daniel nodded slowly. "That's basic relativity." The man tilted his head. "Yes, but it means something deeper. Matter is not solid substance. It is a form of energy arranged in a stable pattern." Pattern. Daniel felt a chill. The notebook had said the same thing. The ancient text had hinted at it. The man continued. "In the Vedic worldview, creation begins with sound, not literal sound, but vibration, a fundamental frequency from which form emerges." Daniel stared at him. "You're saying quantum fields and Vedic vibration are the same thing?" The man shook his head. "No, I'm saying they might be describing reality from different angles." He paused. "Science asks how. Philosophy asks what. Spirituality asks why. And," Daniel pressed, "and sometimes when you go deep enough into how, you start touching what." Daniel leaned against the desk. "But modern physics is based on experiments, equations, predictions. The Vedas are ancient metaphysical texts." "Yes, but consider this." He typed quickly on the keyboard. The double-slit experiment diagram appeared on the screen. 2 slits, a detection screen, interference patterns. "When not observed, particles behave like waves. When observed, they behave like particles." Daniel nodded. "Wave-particle duality." "More than that," the man corrected. "The act of observation influences the outcome." He looked directly at Daniel. "Reality responds to measurement." Daniel felt the weight of that sentence. "So what?" he said carefully. "So," the man continued, "if observation changes reality at the smallest scale, then the observer is not separate from the system." The room felt smaller. "Are you talking about consciousness?" Daniel asked. The man didn't answer directly. Instead, he pulled up a translated verse from the Upanishads. It read, "As is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. As is the atom, so is the universe." Daniel felt a strange pressure in his chest. The comparison was poetic, symbolic, but modern cosmology also suggested something similar. The same mathematical principles governing subatomic particles also described galaxies, fractals, symmetry, self-similarity. The very small and the very large mirrored each other. "But here's the danger," the man said quietly. Daniel looked up. "If you try to force ancient texts to predict modern science, you distort both." Daniel frowned. "Then why show me all this?" The man's eyes seemed sharper now. "Because the real question is not whether the Vedas discovered atoms." He stepped closer. "The real question is why human consciousness keeps arriving at the same structural ideas about reality." Daniel swallowed. Across civilizations, across centuries, across completely different methods, the idea that reality is built from fundamental units, that those units combine and separate, that everything is vibration, that the observer matters. Why do these themes repeat? Outside, the storm had stopped. The silence felt heavy. The man lowered his voice. "What if atoms are not the first layer?" Daniel blinked. "What do you mean?" "What if what we call atoms are just the first layer we can measure?" He typed again. The screen displayed quantum field equations. Under particles are fields. He zoomed in further. Under fields, perhaps even more abstract, information, geometry, mathematics. Daniel's mind was racing. "And underneath that?" he whispered. The man looked at him steadily. "That's the question no one can answer." The lights flickered again, but this time they didn't dim, they intensified. For a moment, Daniel felt dizzy. The room blurred, the shelves stretched unnaturally tall, the air felt charged. The man's voice seemed to echo from far away. In Vedic philosophy, there is a concept called Brahman, the underlying reality beyond all forms. Daniel struggled to focus. In physics, the man continued, we search for a theory of everything, a unified field. His voice grew quieter. Different language, same longing. Daniel suddenly felt a wave of doubt. Or maybe, he said shakily, we're just pattern-seeking creatures. We connect dots that aren't really connected. The man smiled. Good, he said. Doubt is necessary. He stepped back towards the doorway. Never collapse mystery into certainty too quickly. Daniel felt the dizziness fade. The room returned to normal. The light steadied. The computer screen showed only his physics notes, no diagrams, no ancient verses, no strange messages, just silence. Daniel looked up. The man was gone. The doorway was empty. The hallway lights were off, as if no one had ever been there. On the desk, however, something remained, a small piece of paper. Daniel picked it up. 3 words were written on it. Who observes whom? His phone buzzed suddenly, a notification from the university physics department. Tomorrow's guest lecture, Quantum Reality and the Limits of Measurement. Guest speaker, Dr. Arvind Rao. Daniel stared at the name. He had just met a man who never introduced himself, but somehow he already knew. And for the first time, Daniel wondered, was he studying atoms, or were atoms studying him?